Okay, hi teacher and classmates. Today I will be present NAPE guide number 2 that is about the special needs. So first of all, it's important to understand that we will be focused on two main things. The first is the laws referring to the special needs, and the second one are the statistics data about the special needs in the world and Ecuador. So with this in mind, it's important to start with the Universal Human Declaration of Human Rights. Why is it important to have in mind this declaration? Because it's the root of the a lot of rights and a lot of laws that will be saw in different papers around the different years, especially if we will be focused on the agenda of 2030. That this agenda wants to the equality of the rights in the all fields, but this agenda wants to regard the different rights of the people. And with this agenda talk about different things referring to educations and healthy. For this reason, I choose the article number 24 referring to education. That article says that states parties recognize the right of the person with disabilities of education, with a view to realizing this right without discrimination and the basis of equal opportunity. States parties shall ensure an inclusive educational system at all levels and lifelong learning directly to A. The full development of human potential and sense of dignity of self-worth and the strengthening of the respect of the human rights, fundamental freedoms and human diversity. With this article, we can saw that the ONU or the organization that wants to regard the all human rights take in mind the people with disabilities and want to regard these rights, especially to try to be equal with the people that don't have disabilities. And in this case, referring to education, the article defends the opportunity that people with disabilities to have the same kind of education of the people that don't have any disability. But why is important to understand that this right is very important nowadays? It's important nowadays because education is the main thing that different nations as Ecuador, for example, or Latin American countries don't practice good the equally, especially with people with disabilities. This is because in recent years, the governments wants to focus on the people with disabilities. And the government used this article with a base to create their own rules and their own laws. We saw continually different laws in Ecuador, and these laws are based on this article. So continue with the next article referring with health. This article is the number 25. This article talks that states parties recognize that a person with disabilities have the right to enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of health without discrimination on the basis of disability. States parties shall take the appropriate measures to ensure access for persons with disabilities to health services that are gender sensitive, including health related with rehabilitation, in particular the states parties shall A. Provide persons with disability with the same range, quality, and standard of free and affordable health care and programs as provided to the persons, including the area of sexual reproductive health and population based on public health programs. So this article of health is very important because, as you saw, is the next article continuously with the education. That is the article 24. But the articles come together because it's important to understand that according to the different laws, uh, the different states will need to be recognized the people with disabilities according to different standards. This is the main reason that we have a different kind of disabilities, a different levels of disabilities, and of course, the different ages of disabilities, because the health is very important with these kind of people, especially because it depends on the level of disabilities. The people with this kind of disabilities need more attention or not attention. It's the same with education. This article have the root of the different laws in different countries. In Ecuador, for example, we have this article of health are useful for the government to create different ID for people with disabilities. And with this ID, we can show the disability that we have and the number of disability, of the level of disability that these people have. So in the case of Ecuador, we have that in the Ley Orgánica of Discapacidades, the Article 47 said, el artículo 47 de la Constitución de la República dispone que el Estado garantizará políticas de discapacidad y su interacción social, reconociendo sus derechos como el derecho a la atención especializada, a la rehabilitación integral y a la asistencia permanente a las rebajas en servicios públicos y en servicios privados de transporte y espectáculos, a exenciones del régimen tributario, al trabajador en condiciones de igualdad de oportunidades, a una vivienda adecuada, a una educación especializada, a una atención psicológica, acceso adecuado a bienes, servicios, medios, mecanismos y formas alternativas de comunicación, entre otros. So, this article in the Ley Orgánica of Discapacidades of Ecuador said that the state need to bring all guarantees of people with disability to have first a good education, the right of healthy, next the right of psychological attention, and of course these people with according to this law have the first priority in all things referring to the things related with for example tributation, transport, and private services. This is the main reason that we saw in the different, for example, in the banks or schools or government government things, that we have a special window or a special desk for people with disabilities, because these people, according to the law of Ecuador, have the priority in all of things. And of course, these people need to have the right to have the education and health, according to the Declaration of the Human Rights of the ONU. So I find another important article that said, artículo 6, personas con discapacidad. Para los defectos de esta ley se considera una persona con discapacidad a toda aquella que como consecuencia de una o más deficiencias físicas, mentales, intelectuales o sensoriales, con independencia de la causa de la que hubiera originado, ve restringida permanente su capacidad biológica, psicológica y asociativa para ejercer una o más actividades esenciales de la vida diaria, en la proporción que establezca el reglamento. This article is very important to understand the thing that I tell you before, because with the article number 25 referring to the healthy, in the Minister of Ecuador create this article that recognize the people with disability with people that have a more physical or mental or intellectual disability. And with this, these people can be recognized in the eyes of the government as people with disability. And people with disability have a different things or at different levels according to this law. This article is very important in Ecuador because with this, people with disability can claim for their rights, especially in the government things or the public services. If one of the governments or in charges of these public statements break this article, can be break the law. Immediately, the people break their human rights. And this is a very problematic situation in Ecuador or Latin America because a lot of people not respect their laws or not respect the human rights. Artículo number 4, referring to principios fundamentales. La presente normativa se sujeta y fundamenta los siguientes principios. 1. No discriminación. Ninguna persona con discapacidad o su familia puede ser discriminada, ni sus derechos podrán ser anulados o reducidos a causa de su condición de discapacidad. 3. Igualdad de oportunidades. Todas las personas con discapacidad son iguales ante la ley. Tienen derecho a igual protección legal o beneficiarse de la ley en igual medida sin discriminación alguna. No podrá reducirse o negarse el derecho de las personas con discapacidad y cualquier acción contraria que así lo suponga será sancionada. With these two articles, we can saw the derivation of the article number 24 of the human right. That said, with this, the people with disabilities have the right to don't be discriminated in any situation or for any person or for any people. And this article shows that the human rights are for the whole family of these people. Okay, this is the thing that I want to note because the article number 25 is general, but in Ecuador, the people that create this article try to implement this thing of the family. And with this, the right of the people with disability are able for the whole family. And tell that the equality of opportunities, that said that the people with disabilities have the equality of opportunities to all everything, referring to all education, work, healthy, and all of things referring to the human progress. In the articles 9, 10, and 11, we have that these are the things that I mentioned previously, referring to the article 25, that said that with the healthy, the different ministers or the different government things referring for education, in this case, the Minister of Public Healthy or Ministerio de Salud Pública, want to recognize the people with disabilities, and with this create an ID that shows the name, the full name of the people with disability, the kind of disability, the percentage of disability, and the grade of disability. With this, the people of the government or institutions referring to the disabilities in Ecuador have more control about the population of people with disability. But it's important to understand that with this ID, a lot of people use this ID for the bad things. Because, for example, with the congressists use this ID to buy a lot of expensive cars for their own use. And they paid money for create a false ID that said that these people have disabilities. But not a lot of people use this ID for these purposes. We have in Ecuador a lot of people that have real disabilities and they need this ID to obtain certain discounts to buying, for example, medicine, to buying a house, to buying a car. But if people want to buy a car with this ID, the people need to follow some rules. And these rules are, for example, if a people buy a car, these cars will be need to the people with this, or will be useful for a people that have disabilities. For example, to go to therapy, to go to the doctor or something like that. And if a people have a tutor, the tutor can use this card only with factors that involve a people with disability. That are the priority that the government bring to these people. And of course that we saw that these people not pay taxes or something like that in Ecuador, because with this ID, these people are exempt of pay taxes. And of course, as I mentioned, they have a different discounts in different things because these people sometimes paid a lot of money in medicines, doctors, or therapy. So continue with the second point. We have the different facts that involves people with disability. Uh, the first fact obtaining or saying in a world record disability of 2011 said that 15% of the global population have any disability. It means that one of 20 children in the world have a disability. This fact is very important to understand the number of people with disability around the world, and it's an important number. And of course, we saw in the next tables the different levels, and we analyzed the the reason of we have, for example, a lot of people with between 20 or to 40 years that have disability. But it's important to understand that the percentage in the world is a very important percentage in related with the population. So we have different kinds of disabilities. In Ecuador, we have a more percentage of physical disabilities next to the intellectual disabilities, auditive disabilities, visual, and psychological. Of course, the physical disabilities have more percentage because it's more visual than the other ones. And for example, intellectual are sometimes are difficult to find or difficult to show because sometimes the people not present any symptoms or any kind of intellectual disabilities or something like that. And the same with auditive, visual, and psychological. For example, if you use a glasses, it's a visual disability, but it depends of the level of the problem that we have that you have in your eyes. This increase or no the priority of you have. For example, if you use glasses of normally only for reading, you don't have a very important disability. But sometimes we saw that people that not see anything, and this is a very important problem or disability. This is the different percentage. And of course, the psychosocial, we find that not all people have the access to go to the psychology, and this is easy to understand or this is easy to find a problem, a psychological problematic. For this reason, we have that this percentage sometimes change drastically depend of the census or something like that that the authorities make. Okay, we have the range of age. As I mentioned, if you saw this table, you saw that a lot of people between 36 and 46 years have the most percentage, following by the people that have more than 65 years. But this is not a fact that represents the people that have disabilities incompletely, because sometimes in adults or adolescents, they present the different disabilities for any fact, for many factors. For example, sometimes if a people suffer an accident, transit accident, they have or they lose, for example, an arm or a leg. This in that moment, the people enter to this group to the people with disabilities. But in the other hand, we have that in a school sometimes when a teacher saw that a student have a problematic or they don't see or they present any intellectual problematic, they report this to the authorities and the authorities make an analysis, and after this analysis the authorities of healthy evaluate this student, and this determine if a student have or no the disability. For this reason, these age have the majority of cases presented in Ecuador, for example, because these dates are of Ecuador. But I just told you, it not represents the reality, because sometimes a poor people or a poor family don't have access for all of these things. And after that, for any reasons, they understand when they are adults or something like that, that they have any disability, mental disability, visual, autism, or something like that. So it's important to understand for the authorities that they need to be careful to people since they born, and they be focused to the problematics that the way we produce. This is the reason that nowadays, if you born, when a kid born, when a kid born, the authorities follow a different procedure to see that if that the kid of the have or no a problematic intellectual, visual, auditive, or something like that. Because nowadays with the technology, it's more easy to find if a kid have or a baby have a disability. Next, according to this analysis of the Ministerio of Salud Pública and the CONADIS, that is the institution and charter of the people with disabilities, we saw that the majority cases in Ecuador are presented in Guayas, Pichincha, Manabí, and Azuay. But why these provinces are the most provinces with the cases of disabilities? Because first, in Pichincha and Guayas are the provinces that have the majority of number of population. But in Manabí and Azuay, we have that are not the bigger cities in Ecuador. But for example, in Manabí affects the external factors. Has, for example, the different, for example, culture in this country, the because sometimes here is not the main reason, but sometimes families have babies between families, and this have and this create sometimes boys with disabilities, mental, psychological, or something like that. And Azuay is because in Azuay we have a different factors that affect the people. We have, for example, transit accidents or people that move to the other cities. For example, people that move to Guayas and Pichincha, move to Azuay and live there and increase the cases. That is the main reason of that. And in the other provinces, we have a normal number of people. And this is important that understand that the green light show that people that go to the CONADIS or Ministerio de Salud Pública to give attention for maybe their disabilities, because the Ministerio de Salud Pública not only are for healthy or physical healthy, they bring also a psychological attention or intellectual attention or something like that. And it shows that in recent years, the level of attention increased because the government want to solve the problematic of people with disabilities in the last years, and the previous government searched the same. And the previous government put more attention in people with disabilities with a foundation of Manuel Espejo, for example, that are related with this. So with this, we saw that a lot of people in different countries want to find or want to give attention in the Ministerio de Salud Pública. It depends of the physical, mental, or something disabilities that they have. And finally, we have the Tungurahua dates. The Tungurahua data that said that in Tungurahua, as in Ecuador in general, we have the majority of people that have disability that have a physical disability, following by auditive, intellectual, and of course, we saw that in Tungurahua, the most cases presented are in Ambato because it's the capital of the province. And with this, it's important to understand that Tungurahua is a little province, but in a little province, we have in total 11,048 cases in total. So it's an important number referring to the only one province. And Tungurahua is not the provinces that have a lot of cases of disabilities. But with this, we analyze the different laws and the different facts that show the disabilities and show how these laws are referring to the laws created in Ecuador and the different things that we can find in and the problematic of the special needs. Thank you for your attention. That's all.